Times are changing. Are you changing with them? Sales prospecting is not immune to change. Even if you're a seasoned veteran, you know what you're doing, you've had many years of success. We see new tools, technology, and an eager and younger workforce joining our industry. What does this all mean? Well, we might call it an evolution of sales prospecting. And to dig into this, I'm pleased to welcome Troy Harrison, a business management coach, here to help you to succeed.
Thank you, Jeff. Glad to be here.
So let's talk about this, Troy. Set this up. Why is the evolution of sales prospecting such an important topic right now? I know it's one you want to talk about.
Absolutely. Here's what's happening. I'm encountering an awful lot of sales leaders, whether they're business owners, whether they're sales managers, VPs of sales, and they're saying the same thing to me. They're saying, Troy, my salespeople just aren't getting enough meetings right now. How do I get them to go back to working as hard as they used to? And I'm stopping and I'm saying, okay, are we sure that they're not working as hard? And they say, well, they're not getting as many meetings. No, that's not necessarily indicative of lower effort. Here's what's happened. I'm no kid. I've been around the sales profession for quite a while, and prospecting itself has changed. It used to be, when I was in the field 20, 25 years ago, it used to be that if you wanted to set up your appointments for next week, you'd sit down with a good database and you'd start calling. And when I say a good database, I don't mean just company names and numbers. They had contact names as well. And I'd sit down and I'd dial a phone, and on about every third call, roughly, somebody would answer. The person that not just a receptionist, the person that I wanted to talk to, I would end up talking to, because people answered their phones. Nowadays, it's completely different. Now, if you're lucky, you might get 1 out of 10 to answer. And here's what those numbers look like 20 years ago. The average salesperson can dial the phone about 20 times in an hour if you're working off of a good database. So 20 dials an hour, I'm getting a contact on about 1/3 of those dials. So I'm getting a contact probably 6, 7 times an hour. And if I did a good job with my talk track that I was using to get an appointment, I get an appointment about every second or third call. So in that hour, I'm getting 2 to 3 appointments for next week. So if I need 6 new appointments for next week, 2 to 3 hours, I got my dance card filled up. Okay. Now let's take those same numbers and plug in today's contact ratios, because now I'm still going to dial my phone 20 times an hour, but now 1 out of 10 are going to answer again if I'm lucky, which means I'm only going to talk to 2 people in an hour. Plus, people are more suspicious when they answer the phone. And I think a lot of that has to do with all the spam and scam dialing that's going on in auto dialers. So ultimately, you're only getting an appointment on about every third or fourth call instead of about every second or third. That means I'm probably dialing the phone an hour and a half to 2 hours just to get one appointment, unless I'm on a really good run or a really bad run. All of a sudden, to get those 6 appointments next week, I've got to dial the phone 12 hours. That's not as good of an investment of my time. And a lot of sales leaders are struggling with this. And I'm referring to 20 years ago, but really, this is a within the last 3 to 5 year space that this has happened. And it's cultural forces. We've got more younger people in that are predisposed to not answer the phone. It's technological, because of the auto dialers, people are getting carpet bombed. I mean, we're recording this at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I've had 6 spam calls this morning. 6, more than 1 an hour. So, and I answer the phone because unless it says spam risk on it, can't stand that guy. Unless it says spam risk on it, it might be a potential client calling. So if it's just a phone number, I still answer my phone. Point being that these managers are trying to fix a problem without really diagnosing it, because their salespeople are sitting there going, look, I'm still working as hard. Couple that in with the fact that for most industries, the old walk-in cold call is dead. I mean, and it's hitting industrial supply as well. I sold industrial 25, 30 years ago. And honestly, most of my cold calls then, I'd do the old thing, man. I'd drive around to the back dock. I'd walk in the back door. I'd look for the maintenance cage. I'd probably find the maintenance cage. I'd probably find the maintenance manager. And I could have a meaningful sales call walking in without an appointment, without an agenda at all. I was talking to a guy a couple of weeks ago who works for an industrial company, and he decided he was going to do the old time rock and roll cold call. And he walked into an industrial plant, and all of a sudden, the next thing he knew, two people were coming over and saying, "Who are you and what are you doing?" He tried to explain, and he got thrown out and banned from the facility. So security concerns are much more prominent nowadays. There's a lot of reasons for that. Point is that we as salespeople still have to find prospects. That's the one immutable truth that hasn't changed. So how do we find them? Well, nowadays we do still use the phone. I'm a big believer in initiating through the phone. But I'm also a big believer in understanding that you have to take that process through multiple points of contact, through telephone, through LinkedIn, maybe through email, although for the same reasons of spam, email's losing its power as well. But nowadays, you have to approach people on the telephone. Your message has to be tight and right. You cannot call somebody and say, "Hey, this is John Smith. I'd like to talk to you about your Jansan," and get anywhere. You've got to speak directly to the benefits that customers are looking for. Then you've got to be prepared to get that onto LinkedIn, form a relationship with people, not hit them with a message, with a hard sell message right away. That's huge. And then maybe 2 months down the road, have an appointment with them. So we still have to do our funnel filling activities, but nowadays, instead of looking to fill our dance card for next week, now we're looking to fill our dance card for 2-3 months down the road. Prospecting is becoming more of a slow play now, and sales leaders need to understand that, but they still need to manage the activity, because you don't do the activity today, you won't have those appointments a couple of months down the road. Mm-hmm. Sorry, long answer to a short question. I'm kind of fired up about this.
You covered it nicely. And I too receive phone calls like you do every day. I've had 4 today, so I'm not as popular as Troy Harrison is. From a character. From a character, his name is Potential Spam. Potential.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm on AT&T, so I get spam risk.
Well, Verizon does potential spam, I guess. So I get a lot of phone calls like that. But I hear you, Troy. How do you convince this younger generation to do these old school tactics? They have to get on the phone. They have to be persistent. Some of these things, even though we have the tools, we have the CRMs and we have the AI aspect of all this, some of this old school stuff has to still be part of it.
Professional business to business sales is still a person to person persuasive activity. Our job is to relate with other people, just like I'm relating with you right now, in a verbal and nonverbal fashion, in such a way that people win and have a positive buying decision by buying from us. That's really what professional selling is. And I think a lot of this begins in the interview process. I think that sales leaders need to set the table in the interview process about what the expectations are. This is a fail point for a lot of sales hires. And there are a lot of different fail points for sales hires, but one of the biggest ones is in the final meeting where you're presenting the offer, you need to lay out chapter and verse what the expectations of this position are, along with the numbers. And I'll tell you another big mistake that I'm seeing a lot. A lot of sales leaders are trying to manage activity with a point system. In other words, you get X amount of points for a phone call, you get X amount of points for an email, you get X amount of points for a meeting. At the end of the week, you got to have 200 points or whatever the number is. What they're finding is that salespeople are padding those up with emails Even if it's 1 point for an email and 5 points for a phone call, a lot of these salespeople will bang out 5 emails because nobody's going to tell you no when you send out an email. And it's very easy to send out a ton of emails. So they're sending out all these emails. They're not getting a result. They're not getting a response, but they can say, okay, boss, I got my points. No, the sales leaders still have to manage to the idea that telephone voice-to-voice contact, or in many cases now voice-to-voice mail contact, is the way to approach customers. But I think that I don't think that's something you can spring back on younger salespeople later. I think you tell them right up front. And here's the thing: I work with a client right now. As a matter of fact, when I end this call, I go get in my vehicle and I drive to St. Louis to work with a client. Their oldest salesperson is 38. Their youngest one is 27. And they're one of the best telephone cold prospecting sales teams I've ever seen, because they make it cultural from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
And let them know what the rules are ahead of time and give them an opportunity to opt out. Say, look, if you're not comfortable picking up the phone and making calls, there may be other sales positions out there for you, but not with my company. Mm-hmm. I wish you well.
Good points, Troy. Big challenge, ongoing challenge, but with these thoughts in mind, those watching this can apply a few of these and, get the right people for the right job and make those phone calls and get those appointments.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna elaborate just a little bit on the phone call, because I said earlier that your messaging has to be tight and right. Here's what I mean by that. When somebody, on that 1 time out of 10, when somebody picks up the phone, you've got to be able to very quickly articulate a benefit to them from talking to you. You've got to be prepared to say, this is how I help my customers. This is why you benefit from spending 30 minutes with me to see if I can help you solve your needs. Too many salespeople don't do that. They just say, oh, can I quote on your Janssen supplies, or can I quote on your industrial supplies? That's not going to get you an appointment. It may get you an opportunity to fire out a cheap quote that doesn't do you any good. And then when you leave a voicemail, which you're going to be doing on 9 out of 10, reverse that order. Instead of saying, I am person X with company X, here's my benefit, reverse it. Because I've got a little hashtag, beat the delete. When you leave a voicemail, you've got to imagine this person's finger is hovering over the delete key, just waiting to go like that. So you've got to beat that delete. So instead of saying, I'm person X with company Y and I offer benefit Z, immediately, I offer benefit Z, I'm person X with company Y. And then when you leave callback information, multiple points of contact. Call me at this number. Text me at this number. Look me up on LinkedIn. Here's my email. Give people a variety of ways. Here's what I find out. When people are leaving quality emails, their LinkedIn views go up, people are leaving quality voicemails, their LinkedIn views go up the next day. Sometimes as many as 25% of the people they left voicemails for are looking them up on LinkedIn. Well, there's an opportunity to link up with them and form a relationship. It's thinking of, there's an old joke that says, if at first you don't succeed, redefine success. But I think that's really legitimate in prospecting right now. I think that we have to redefine what success means in terms of prospecting nowadays.
Agreed. And everyone watching this, that's your task. Get after it and make your Salesforce team effective and profitable. Troy, thank you for this today.